Well, I went to the LDS church. They're not Mormon anymore, by the way. So they did a rebrand. Okay, don't call them Mormon. They're LDS. Okay, it's kind of like a Kanye to Yee type situation. They don't update. They do not have coffee at all, and I don't think it's a funding thing because I looked around and these people got money. But I think it's a moral thing. I don't think coffee, the beans. I'm gonna need somebody to explain that to me. But they have a more. I don't think they do caffeine. They don't do alcohol. They not church obviously, but there's no caffeine. Everybody's wearing a suit. So don't walk in looking like this. They'll probably think you're homeless. And then all the women are in like skirts and long dresses. And listen, I've been to my church and we could use a dress code, honestly. It's getting a little bit out of hand in the non-denominational churches. We did some hymns sitting down, by the way, not standing up. And then we sang How Great Thou Art. And I was like, listen, I know this one. I sang along with this one. And then we did like the first, I took a photo of it right here, like the first, I don't know what it was, something of Joseph Smith. And I was like, wow, this is not, I'm a conscientious objector to this one. I'm gonna observe. And really, I don't know what I believe here because let me just tell you, because we did communion with bread and water. I didn't do it, by the way. I was like, I'm good. I'm straight. Okay. We did bread and water. So the Catholics do bread and wine. My tradition does bread and like grape juice, which is all a symbol anyway. So why not water? Like, what if they were like water? What if you did it's tap? What if they did sparkling water? What if they did soda water? What if they did water with a little bit of lemon in it? What if they did lemonade? Like, is God like, hey, no artificial flavor? Like, what if you did if you're like, I'm sincere about communion, all I have is Fanta. And I don't know, is that allowed? Does that count? I was going to say it's the pastor. I don't know if that's the term for him, the leader, and he did a reading out of the book of Alma, which is not, I memorized all 66 books when I was in Sunday school. Alma is not in it. So I was like, well, I'm just here. So I'll just, learn. And then they didn't have a message. They had in comedy terms, you call it an open mic. I think people they were like, we're going to open it up. Everybody can just come up here and say whatever they want. And I think, I could be wrong about this, but it was the 5th Sunday of the month. So this is an uncommon scenario. So it was just like a free for all. Like everybody just come up and give a testimony. But it's not, if you've ever been to black church, a testimony is very different from a Mormon testimony. I'll just say an LDS testimony. What I've always tried to do with my comedy, and sometimes I don't do it well, obviously, but is like they're very serious, religious practices, the meaning of life and death, but also there's human beings involved, and that's what makes it funny. Like there was a lady in the back sleeping. I go, oh, okay, so they're just regular humans. Like she was probably out late last night, and then the lady got up to give a testimony. She kind of was like, said something to the fact of, and LDS people correct me here. They were like, I'm only giving this so the celestial angels will be taking notes so I can get credit in the afterlife. So I think it's like a good deed to give a testimony because the angels record it all. And she was like, I'm only here for that, which I thought that was funny. And then this one lady got up and it was talking about a mission she went on in Africa. And she was like, they have great, hold on. All right. This lady, white lady, okay, old white lady got up and she was like, I went on a mission one time in Africa and the drums and the music was so loud and they were like singing. It was so great. And then she leaned over to one of the black, like elders or whatever that was like on stage, just like a regular black guy. I didn't mean to say it like that, but she was like, you know what I'm talking about, right? And he was like, what? It was like kind of racist to say, but it was like it was hilarious because I looked over this young guy that was like next to me and I was like, is that? And he was like, we were dying, dude. And I was like, oh, these people cool with me. I feel like the tricky thing about all of this, and listen, if you get into like the evangelical Christianity and like the rules of it, and like, you know, kind of like the how far is too far type questions. It gets a little theologically confusing as well. But there was a guy in there that gave a testimony that it was very emotional, and he was crying, and he was like, my daughter is like away from the Lord and making poor choices, and he was, you know, since crying about it. And I was like, well, I mean, you know, I feel a great amount of empathy or sympathy or understanding, or at least commonality in that way, that people are coming in on Sunday morning looking for help, looking for support, looking for strength, you know. Like, now that being said, this temple situation, y'all gotta help us out here, okay? Because I was like, well, I want to go to the LDS practice on Sunday morning. And they were like, well, you can go to an LDS church, but you cannot go to a temple. So if you see, like, if you ever seen an LDS temple, they usually look a little nicer. They got a little guy with the gold trumpet on the top. There's 150 of these temples in the world. And if you want to go to the temple, you can't just go in there. You got to be approved. I was like, if I go to the temple right now, they let me in? They go, no, you got to have a card. I go, well, how do I get a card? They were like, well, you got to go to your church and get baptized. It's like a season pass or something like that. I was like, well, what if you get access to the temple and there's like a celestial room in there? And I was like, and then she showed me a photo of it. Hold on. I think I got one. I asked her if I could take this photo. I was like, what if I get my season pass to the temple? I was like, have y'all ever been in there? They're like, yeah, we go in there sometimes. And I was like, what if you get a season pass to the temple and then you do some bad stuff? Do they take it away? And they're like, every 2 years you got to renew. And this is what they told me. Every 2 years you got to renew I was like, oh, so it's kind of like a driver's license. They were like, all right, not really. But I was like, has anyone ever tried to go in there with a fake ID? And they were like, no one's ever asked us that. But that was for real. Very, very kind. Obviously, I think Mormons have that reputation. They answered all my questions. When they were talking about the celestial rooms and the temples and things that I couldn't really get access to. And when I was leaving, I look over and there's these double doors, these wooden double doors, and it says Cultural Hall. And I was like, Cultural Hall? What's in there? And I took a video.
Since they were able to help an individual who was diabetic and facing amputation of both legs.